Hey fellas, PV2 Smurf here. PV2 Smurf here. PV2 Smurf here. Oh fellas, PV2 Smurf here. Quick trip to the parts store and bam, brand new one. No more broken one. Now that I'm confident this tank is completely empty, I'm going to remove it from the motorcycle, from the frame. So there's a bolt here. There's a bolt right here. This bolt right here goes to the other tank. This bolt over here goes to the other tank. Also, on the bottom of each one of them is another bolt, which is located here. So remove, there should be 3 bolts for each side. 1, 2, 3. Now as you can see, the gas tanks are removed. Put all the bolts back in their corresponding locations. Made note that some of them come with washers off with them. Some of them did not. So some of the washers went in between the bushings. Some of them did not. I also made note that each one of these bolts have red Loctite on it to hold the gas tank, which is pretty critical. So I'd make sure red Loctite back on them. Now from this point on, we're going to move to removing this bracket. It's located right here. Access the cylinder head in order to get it off the motorcycle. I went ahead and just broke these loose. Now I'm going to take this loose. This bolt right here, because you don't take this loose because it just takes this bracket loose. This bolt right here is a 5/8. 5/8. Notice I broke out the 1/2 inch for that because it was on there pretty good. Now all I done was remove this bracket, these bolts right here. Move this one so I can move this bracket. It has an electrical connection to it, so I can either unhook it, or what I'm going to do is fish it back in between the cylinders and just lay it up here out of the way. Your choice. Penetrant spray on it and the other one so they'll come off easier. Hopefully not break this one. Now let's get this one right here loose. Then claim the life of one socket. We'll claim the next one. On here, shorten it down in there some. Damn thing's tight, wasn't it? We're gonna do the other side. The other one, as you can see, you can't reach in there like that. So this ain't gonna work on this side. Guess I'll have to go plan B. Let's try this. I got it in there. It's in there good. Don't want to strip that out. Like I said, we'll make sure that's on there good. Wedge this in here. Put a little pressure on it. Just a little. Make sure it's on there good. And real easy. And there it went. Just like that. Now remember, you just got to loosen these up. You don't take them all the way out. The intake will slide out. There's that one. Alright, so remove these front 2 intake bolts. Should be able to just wiggle this like that. Just like that, it'll come right out. Gasket on this side. Intake gasket on the other side. We can set this to the side. We're also going to run these bolts back in here where they come from so we don't lose them. Now the intake and the carburetor is removed. Inside here, This is the piece that holds the horn on the other side. It was a 5/8. There's a square nut that stays in there, holds that bolt tight. So you have to hold your finger on it when it's loose, that way you can pull it out. Now what I'm going to do, set the motorcycle at top dead center, and I'll show you how to do that. Over here on the left side of the motorcycle is a plug that's located right here. When you remove that plug, it's a 3/8 Allen key. Now to set top dead center, you can take this primary cover off, use a wrench, reach in there and put it on there, no problem. However, being us that don't want to do everything like they're supposed to, and little tricks, my buddy Anthony told me, put it in 5th gear, which I have, look back in there, just spin the rear tire. When I do, it'll line right up there, and you don't have to take this off. Amen. Oh, and don't forget to take spark plugs out. That'll help things a whole lot. So the way you know you're in top dead center on this 96 Custom Softails 1340 Evo, as I've said, this mark right here is right in the middle. See how the mark's just a straight line? That's how you know it's at top dead center. Another way is I can take, this is a plastic pick, don't use metal, and stick it down in the cylinder, and I can feel it's at the top. When I turn the wheel, I can feel it move up and down, and that's the one we want. The front one's number 1, the back one's number 2, and you want number 1 at top dead center. Alright, now we're going to move this, I guess you'd call it a foul pan. Not really sure what you call it, a rocker cover maybe. Since it's a top dead center, neither one of these springs should be under any compression. The top dead center mark puts a number 1 to where both springs are closed, so they shouldn't be under any pressure at all. So these are 3/16, and I was able to reach them with a bit. However, this one, can't reach it with a bit. So we're going to move this bracket right here in front, because you can't reach this one. This is what held our gas tank on, so we're going to remove that. These front bolts that hold this right here on, where the gas tank went on, those are 1/2 inch. Looks like the nuts are welded to the bracket, so I should just be able to. This is 1, so we don't drop it or scratch our front fender. Brackets out of the way. Move this real slow so don't scratch the fender. This off. Put this back inside our bracket so we don't lose our bolts. Like I said, these nuts right here, they're actually welded in there, so you don't have to worry about having to hold them. Now we have access, we should be able to remove this with a wrench. And we do. Sure, it's in there. And they're not that tight, so I don't know if maybe mine's loose or it's not that tight. I'll do the torque spec whenever I go put it back on. So I try to take these off in a pattern. This one, that one, that one, that one. I don't think it matters, but for instance, in my case, I'm going to do it that way, so that way I know that I didn't take one side off more than the other one, so I worry about warping it. No, each one of these 3/16 screws come off, or bolts, fasteners, we're going to call them, come off of washers. All 4 of them did. Take a soft melt hammer and tap on it. There it went. Soft melt hammer and tapped on it. Really easy. There is the valve cover pan removed. Note that there is a gasket that goes on this all the way around it. Note the orientation of this is this indention towards the front. Just in the event you was take it off and forget, this flat part goes towards the back. And so I'm going to lay this over here out of the way, and we'll clean all this up before we put it back on. Now once we remove the cover, this plate right here, I'm sure what it's called, I'm sorry. This plate just comes off just like this. As you can tell on mine, somebody's painted this. Best orientation is, when you look at this, the gap in the front goes towards the front, as indicated by the cylinder. Set this part out of the way, which I think I'm going to repaint this because the motorcycle is no longer that color. Now, though the book doesn't say specifically which order they come out, they do list which order they're retorqued in. So that's the order I'm going to take them off by taking them off gradually, even though they're not that tight. 4, 3, 2, 1. Because when you torque them back, it's opposite. So I took them loose. And these just removes the rockers, not the cylinder head. Which, since we're at top dead center, we know that there's no, and I can see the valves are closed for everybody being under tension. That one. No, each one of these have washers on the bottom of them. So the rocker arm bolts are loose, all of them. The bolts are a 1/2 inch. Now with the rocker bolts removed, I'm going to remove these 2 fasteners here. These are a 3/16, I'm sorry. There's one located here. There's one located right here in the front. Now we have these bolts loose. There's only 2 of them. There's not 2 on the other side. Now we got those bolts taken loose with that 3/16 Allen key. There's 3 other bolts got to take loose. One there, one there, and one there. So what I'm going to do is start in the middle a little bit, little bit, little bit until they're loose, and then I'll take them all the way off. These bolts down in here are 7/16. I know now as you start taking this loose, it will begin to leak oil, which is good. That means the seal was in working like it's supposed to. This cover begin to leak oil down the front right here, but it will begin to leak oil. Bolt is off. All 3 bolts are off. It should raise up. Move the lower rocker cover, I believe is what the book says it's called. I know now I got all these bolts still in here. So that way now they go back. And there is your cylinder head. As you note, the yellow is towards the back, the green is towards the front. All the bolts are still intact sitting inside this lower rocker arm cover. There's a gasket on the bottom. Peel back right here. Be replacing that. It didn't leak before and we don't want it to start now. I'm going to set this over here out of the way with the rest of our stuff. And to remove these rocker covers, which I already have, these pieces right here, they're slid in here. This has got a spring in it, this part does. Push it down, it goes on there. To remove it, stick a screwdriver in here and turn it this way, that pops it loose, and when you pop it loose, see the slack that's in it? Well, as soon as we pull this push rod out, and note that it is going to have oil in it. What's a big ass push rod? Yellow paint mark was in the rear. Green paint mark was in the front. No, these are going to leak. Because, of course, they use the oil, the valves on the top. So yellow in the rear, green in the front. I'm going to hold a rag on the bottom of them so they don't leak everywhere. Set these to the side. Now, once we've done that, this push rod cover that we have here, well, now, since it's removed, will now go down. So that's went down. Other than do the same. So that way it's out of our way. Move the push rod cover. So what I'm going to do, put that one and that one, because that's the front one. Pull this out of the rocker box, they call it. It's just to the down in here on this one. Covers I wouldn't think would really be specific, but I'll set them over here with it. Now all I done was remove this bracket, these bolts right here. Move this one so I can move this bracket. It has an electrical connection to it, so I can either unhook it, or what I'm going to do is fish it back in between the cylinders and just lay it up here out of the way. Your choice. So now we're going to remove the cylinder head bolts. The most important thing to remember is they're different from, looks like an 84 model and then the newer model. These are the tightening sequence, but when you go to take the cylinder head bolts off, you want to do them in a crisscross pattern as shown. So the 4 bolts we have here, there's 2 on the other side and 2 here. So what you want to do is a crisscross pattern. Crisscross pattern, you want to do it 1/8 of a turn. So go 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you want to do it 1/8 of a turn. And once you get it 1/8 of a turn, you keep doing it 1/8 at a turn at a time till you can get them loose by hand. That's important for removing this cylinder head. 1/8 of a turn. The cylinder head bolts are 12-point half-inch. 12-point socket, half-inch. Alright, so I removed the jug, and basically the way I went about doing that is I removed the exhaust. They were 1/2-inch fasteners holding the exhaust to the head. The head is on there pretty good, so I had to tap it with a rubber mallet hammer, loosen it up. What I went ahead and done was went ahead and removed all the exhaust, because you know it's got to come loose from that one too, and I just took it completely off the motorcycle. I didn't cover it because your exhaust is probably different from mine. Then all I did was make sure that I pulled the jug all the way up and slipped it off. A note to make about the orientation of this jug is that looking at it from this side, these dowel pins go towards the left side. So that way you make sure you put it back on right. Cylinder head the same way. Cylinder head, of course, spark plugs on that side. Hey fellas, I want to appreciate you for tuning in on the video. If I have anything that I missed, could have done a little bit better or whatever, let me know in the comment section below. As always guys, remember, your rig, your call.